Hi, everybody. Today on the top 10 free sci-fi and fantasy book countdown, the number one book has both science fiction and fantasy in it, spaceships and magic. But before we get to it, we're going to go through each of the top 10 free speculative fiction books on Amazon, because here at MetaStellar, we read each of those books every single Friday. Well, not the whole book, just the beginning, but enough to tell you whether it's worth reading. Today, I was joined by community members Mary Stoll, Tina Bertovsky, Carla Nordlund, and AMIRA LOUTFI. And AMIRA was able to join me for today's taping. Hi, AMIRA.
Hello, hello.
Okay, so let's get into the number 10 book on the list. Here it is, number 10. It's called, I can't read the title because it's backwards for me. This is the first time we're doing the countdown backwards and we're working out the kinks. Okay, so the book is called Beauty and the Goblin King by Lidiya Foxglove. And this is the first of 13 books in the Fairy Tale Heat romantic fantasy series. The other books are $4 each, and they are not in Kindle Unlimited. So I read this book, and it is a fairy tale romance. It's a retelling of the classic story of the Beauty and the Beast, except the Beast is the Goblin King. So, so the premise is that the Goblin King is in his cave and is not coming out, but he will pay 1 gold coin for every night that unmarried young women spend with him. So the desperate, poor young women in the local area kind of like head on down to his cave, spend a night or a few nights, and come back with a bunch of gold coins. And they say, yep, the Goblin King wanted exactly what you think he'd want, but they had a very hazy memory of the details. So our protagonist, Sabella, is really curious about this. She's read about this in a book because she's a big bookworm. And the picture of the Goblin King is like really creepy and scary with horns and claws and stuff, but kind of compelling in a certain way. And her family suffers a big blow. There's a fire, warehouses burn down, they lose money, and the family is in desperate financial straits. And she volunteers to go see the Goblin King. She's the youngest of all the daughters, and if she doesn't go, then maybe one of the older ones would go. And she's kind of jealous of that. She doesn't want anybody else to go but her. So she walks off. It's about a day's walk away, and she goes to the cave of the Goblin King. And he looks exactly as horrible as the book described, but she's kind of into it. And he doesn't even want to know her name. They're just going to get to it. So it's definitely an adult retelling of the Beauty and the Beast story. Oh, and the guy has the goblin has an awesome library. So I want to know what this curse is that he's supposedly under, why he's got a library hidden down there in a cave, why he doesn't want to know the names of any of the women he sleeps with, and like what's going on. It's a very readable, cheesy, but very readable story. Okay, so I'm not saying I'm going to stick with it, but it is kind of cute. Next, we have a book that AMIRA read, Bringing Ragnarok by Andrew Tanner, the first of 6 books in the Bringing Ragnarok post-apocalyptic Norse mythology series. The other books are $1 each, but they're all in Kindle Unlimited. And Kindle Unlimited, for those who don't know, is you pay $10 a month and you read all the books that you want. Awesome deal if you get your books on Kindle. So, AMIRA, what did you think of bringing Ragnarok?
So I mean, I can understand how other people get excited about it and why it's popular, right? But I do think that the cover is a little misleading because the cover and the name, it looks kind of serious, like a serious book. But if you open it up, it actually is like kind of cheesy and kind of funny, actually. Um, it opens up with 6 young people exploring a cave in Iceland. It's their spring break. There's a lot of silly banter. One of the kids is like, kind of resents coming. They wish they didn't even come. And then they are really deep in the cave and they hear a disembodied voice making fun of them, laughing at them. It's pretty lighthearted, I would say. Um, and then uh, they decide to like work out a deal with the disembodied voice, right? They see like it's kind of weird. It's weird. It's kind of goofy, actually. Maybe that's what it is. It's kind of goofy and cheesy. They see a foot sticking out of the rocks, and apparently this voice is like coming from the foot, and the foot looks like the foot is talking to them and looking at them and stuff. And then they agree to help the disembodied voice, and then they get transported to the middle of a forest, and there's a naked man on the floor, chained up, and only one of his feet is like free. So I guess that's how he was communicating with the kids, right? Like his one free foot kicking around. Um, and then the kid, it's kind of weird. I kind of get the feeling that the kids summoned a magical eagle, right? Without realizing it, somehow they summoned it. The eagle rescues the guy, and then they all get transported a second time. They're like on top of they're looking at the Earth from like outer space. Okay, so it kind of the face you're making is totally appropriate, Maria. Um, I
Well,
mean,
nobody else could see my face, but trust me, I'm making a face.
she is, and it's very appropriate. Yeah, so from up there in outer space, they can see that Iceland is, cut in half, or it has a huge like crack going through it, and there's a bunch of like smoke coming out of the crack. So that was where I stopped reading. I was kind of like, okay, you know what? Apparently, what they have to like save Iceland. I mean, and they're gonna do it with this really weird, magical character. Um, I glanced through like the next few pages. Apparently, the guy or the magical guy, right, is a trickster god from Norse mythology. And the
Loki?
kid doesn't work with him.
Is he
Loki.
Loki?
Yeah, Loki. Yeah.
Everybody's writing books about Loki.
Oh,
Well,
really?
he is in the public domain, so you
Mhm.
get to write books about like a major Marvel character, and it's okay. There's nothing Marvel can say about it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it was a Marvel character.
Well, okay, Loki is like a TV show on Disney Plus, and he was like the main antagonist in the first Thor movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I guess I'm a little out of
Oh
a
my
little out
god,
of it.
you
Yeah,
missed
yeah.
like one of the best recent shows on
Mhm.
TV
Mhm.
was Loki. It was so good. And you've got to go see the Thor movies because they are so great. And
Oh,
Loki
yeah.
is absolutely wonderful in them.
Okay,
Okay,
cool. I'll
you
have to
gotta
check it
catch up.
out.
You gotta catch up, Amira.
I'll put it on my to-do list.
All right, so you're not gonna stick with the book.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Okay.
But you know.
All right, so moving on to number 8 on today's list. Let's see if I can show it to you. There it is. The Spellbinding Courtship by Katherine Dotterer. It's the prequel to the 3-book Kellatini Tales romantic fantasy series. The other books are $5 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. The last book is not out yet. It's scheduled to be released next May, and it's available for pre-order. So I read this book. And so I don't like romantic fantasy. It's not my genre. Yes, I've watched Drew Barrymore in Ever After and Amy Adams in Enchanted and every other romantic fairy tale fantasy movie out there, but that's a totally irrelevant issue altogether. So I'm a bitter, cynical person and I hate romance. So I'm not the target audience for this book, so take my review with a grain of salt. So the story is Selena's parents died in a magical flu, and her uncle came and sold off the entire family estate and packed her up and moved her to the capital of the country, which was on the other side of the country. And so she's stuck in this house with him. She's drilling holes in the walls so she can spy on him because he's always got weird schemes going on. He's just a bad guy. And while she's spying on him one day, she discovers that his latest scheme is to sell off her virginity. He's hired an evil witch to hold an auction to auction off her virginity to the highest bidding rapist. So yeah, she wants to foil this evil scheme, and she decides to do it by losing her virginity. So as someone who's kind of led a sheltered life, she's like, all right, how do I go about losing my virginity? Where do people go to have sex? I've heard of brothels, so she goes to a brothel. And after a little bit of misunderstandings are cleared up, the brothel's madam is like, yeah, sure, why not? All she wants is that the guy who like does it is like a decent gentleman, and the brothel's like, we don't get too many decent gentlemen in here. And the girl's like, well, I guess do the best you can. Then we switch to another guy's point of view. Aragon, he's the new Minister of Agriculture for the country, and he's best friends and third cousin to the king. So he's well connected, and he's young, and his mother's anxious to marry him off. So she's arranged a dinner where she's going to be trying to set him up with the latest woman that she's lined up for him. And so to avoid all this, he goes out to dinner at his favorite tavern. On the way back, a rainstorm hits, and he ducks for cover in the nearest doorway, which turns out to be a shady brothel. And they let him in if he pays some money. So he forks over a bunch of money, and they take him to a room. And he's about to explain to the girl that he's not like interested in anything. He's just here to get out of the rain. That old, I was just getting out of the rain in the brothel excuse. When he suddenly realizes how gorgeous she is. And before he can say anything, she jumps up and smashes her lips on his. So this is the premise of the book. So stupid and cheesy. I could not stop reading it. I loved it. It is almost compulsively readable. It is exactly like a potato chip of a book, or a French donut of a book. Very, very, very. It's a fun read. Yeah. So I'm gonna stick with it. But I hate admitting it publicly. So yeah, definitely one of a guilty pleasure here. Not exactly a hugely serious book that I will be talking about in my author conferences, or I don't know what I'm gonna do. All right, next we have number 7 on the list. Influential Magic by Deanna Chase, the first of 3 books in the Crescent City Fae Urban Fantasy series. The other books are $5 each and are both in Kindle Unlimited. This author has been on our list before. We reviewed Soul of the Witch, another urban fantasy book, and Soulless at Sunset, the beginning of yet another urban fantasy series. So Mary Stoll, one of our new community members, read this book. And she says that Willow Roswin, the protagonist, is a fairy and a vampire hunter with special vampire hunting gifts. But she owns a business. She's got a day job. Her business is the Faded Cupcake in New Orleans, because I guess every vampire hunter needs to have a day job at a
I
bakery.
want to go there so badly. It sounds like the best bakery, just that name.
So, so she's at the airport on her way back home, and her brother has died, and her brother's best friend drove her to the airport so that she can come back home. And there's a little bit of chemistry there. They've been flirting for a little bit, and there's an unexpected lingering goodbye kiss. And it turns out her brother's death was kind of mysterious. And his brother's friend, Taliesin, had a revolving door of girlfriends. So Willow doesn't really want to get involved into anything there. So she comes back to New Orleans, and then her roommate asks her to go to a cemetery to corner a rogue vampire. And the mysterious vampire nearly drains her and escapes. So a lot of blows coming at her right and left. So she also has a pet, Link, a shape-shifting dog that shifts between a white wolf and a shih tzu. That's unusual. And while in wolf form, Link rescues her from the vampire. And they go looking for the escaped vampire. And meanwhile, Willow's ex shows up, and he's a vampire now. So, and if he touches her, it's very painful to her, so they can never be together. So he has shown up to give Willow some kind of warning message, but her friend Phoebe knocks him unconscious before he can tell her what this warning message is. So a lot of things happening here in the beginning of this book. So it starts out with a lot of action, and there's a lot of unanswered questions. Will Taliesin, her brother's best friend, join her in New Orleans? What happened with her ex? Why did he become a vampire? Will she have to choose between the two of them? Who's this rogue vampire? Who's showing up? Did the vampires have anything to do with her brother's death? Mary says she has a lot of questions about this book, and because it is so fast-paced, the characters are interesting, she likes the supernatural storyline, and she says she'll definitely continue reading the book this weekend. And it sounds kind of good. I might read this book this weekend too, if I have time after reading all those sexy romances. Next, we have Marked for Rage by Susan Hayes, the first of 4 books in the Crashed and Claimed sci-fi romance series. The other books are $3 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And AMIRA is the one who read this one. AMIRA, what did you think of the book?
Awesome. I was totally into it. So I think I like the the basic structure, the tone, like all the things that I would expect in the faded romance books. I think I'm into. I like that the story is pretty simple and straightforward. I can just like get through it without thinking too hard. I can also skim, or I could slow down if I feel like slowing down, right? Without that messing up the story. And I like the tone, right? A lot of the time, it does not have a young adult tone. I think I don't like young adult, the young adult genre. So it's kind of like cute and cheesy, but definitely not for teenagers. It's for grown women, you know. Um, um, about this book in particular, I was into it. First thing I liked about it was, you know, that my expectations of the genre, those were nice, like positive, right? And then the second thing I noticed that I liked is that it's only like 73 pages long. And that makes me feel like, okay, we're gonna have to cut to the chase. Like we're not gonna be wasting any time in this book. Um, so okay, so yeah, so okay, so in general, Fated Mates, the trope is good. It's a great way to weave in a bunch of romance without like forcing it, because the magic system of Fated Mates is basically all about romance, right? A supernatural person sniffs out their mate, and then they have to be with their mate, whether or not the mate is ready, whether or not their mate is happy with it, or even if they're happy with it, if they are accepting of it, right? So there's a lot of romance built into the magic system, and it also opens the door for a lot of comedy, um, which is, you know, also pretty good. I think I'm into romantic comedy. Um, and third, when it comes to these alien fated mates, there's a lot of wacky, unique, bizarre world building. That's something I noticed about the alien ones. And the authors take advantage. They're like, great, he's an alien. Let's make him really wacky. Let's, you know, it's nice. So I like that. I like the space opera, you know, setting, or you know, whatever, like however they want to play around with like the alien setting and world building. It's like, you know, I'm into it. I'm here for it. So if you want to judge me, go ahead and judge me. I'm having fun. I actually probably will finish reading this just because I like it. And if I really do finish it, I'll come back and I'll update my review.
All right. Oh, and the link to that review is in the description box below.
Mm.
So yeah, all the links to the story, all the links to the books, everything is down below. So number 5 on today's list is Heart of Steel by Demelza Carlton, the first of 5 books in the Heart of Steel paranormal romance series. The other books are $5 each, and they are not in Kindle Unlimited. The last book is scheduled for release next February, but you can pre-order it if you like it. So Demelza Carlton is on this list a lot. And normally AMIRA reviews her books, so she knows what I'm talking about. We have reviewed so many of her books. The links are below. So this time, Mary Stoll read the book, and she says that the book starts out with Carlene, a witch who has promised her overprotective brother that she'll never use her powers of witchcraft ever again. But she doesn't think that there's any harm to using them, just a little bit, maybe to protect her safety or to protect her mill, which is what happens when her brother leaves her alone at their mill and 4 intruders show up, her wards are triggered, and she shoots and kills the trespassers. Then she does a ritual to turn these 4 men into immortal warriors who are going to protect her home. And she figures justified because the wards are set up so they're not triggered by anyone with innocent intentions. So these guys are guaranteed to be bad guys. But her brother comes home and interrupts her and scolds her for using this magic. So it turns out that witches are not welcome in this world, and they're burned. And that 2 of the men that she killed are family, they're cousins. And that's why they look familiar, even though she didn't like fully recognize them. So Will drags the bodies off to bury them, and Mary says she's kind of concerned about the fact that Carlene, the protagonist, doesn't seem to have any remorse about killing her cousins, and she wasn't at all squeamish when she cut their hearts out. So yeah, that's kind of gross. But Mary says that she's going to continue reading this book because the story is intriguing and she wants to find out what's going to happen next. All right, next we have Found by Cali, Mann, the first of 4 books in the Thornbriar Academy Young Adult Paranormal Romance series. The other books are $4 each, and they're not in Kindle Unlimited. And if you like this book, you should also check out the related short story Lost, which is also free today, and I will link it below. The author has been on this list before. Last year in April, we reviewed Called, the first book in the Reverse Harem Paranormal Romance trilogy. So when I first saw this book, I'm thinking that this is a book about a young person who gets to go to a magic school, and I'm all Harry Pottered out. This is not my kind of thing, and I hate young adults. And then the subhead is that it's a reverse harem shifter romance, and I hate all of those words. This is not a genre that appeals to me in any way, shape, or form. So reverse harem is where the girl gets all the guys. She doesn't have to choose between them. She takes them both, or all 3 of them, or all 4 of them, or however many there are. She just like grabs them all up. So not my kind of thing. It seems like way too complicated and too full of drama. So the book starts out with Haley, 17, hiding in a closet because she's being punished. She bit another girl at the orphanage where she lives. The other girl was bullying one of the youngest girls there. So she's also in her wolf phase. She's been living in this orphanage for 10 years, and this place makes the little orphan Annie seem like really luxurious by comparison. All the orphans sleep in a single room, so all the other kids know about Haley's phases. Like she has a wolf phase, a mermaid phase, a crow phase, and a fire phase. There might be others that we just haven't heard about yet. The administrators of this orphanage don't even bother learning the girls' names. It is like that creepy. The place is just awful. And then she overhears a conversation that the orphanage is going to sell her. They're going to auction her off to the highest bidder. As a virgin, she'll get a good price. And this auction's going to happen in a month. She has a month to escape. So the premise is cheesy. Everything about the book is cheesy. But I really, really liked reading this, and I liked Haley. She seems like a fun character to get to know, and the story is very compelling. So yeah, I might stick with it. It's, even though it's totally not my kind of book, it's just so much fun to read. Okay, next we have number 3 on the list, which is The Night Queen by Denise Daye, the first of 3 books in the Romantic Fairy Tales for Adults fantasy romance series. This seems to be a trend this week. People love romantic fantasies. The other books are $4 each, but they are in Kindle Unlimited. The 3rd book is scheduled to be released in November and is currently available for pre-order. Community member Carla Norland read this book, and she says that she immediately was attracted to the fact that the book is described as a historical dark fantasy romance. And it starts out with a prologue where Mina, while she was a child, was at her royal birthday party, and the king was there, and we see her relationship with her parents. Her father is pretty stern, but is head over heels in love with his wife, the mother, and her mother is beautiful and kind. And another noble family, the Wilbrents, show up, and they bring a gift, a snow white newborn foal, and their son Ulrich and Mina run off to the stables, And at the stables, the stable hands catch a thief, a young starving girl, and Mina intervenes to help the girl and keep her from being punished. And Ulrich praises her for being so kind, just like her mother. And then her mother dies. So then we switch to 13 years later. Mina is now a young adult, and she's still haunted by her mother's death. And her father coped with it by becoming emotionally distant. And Mina has coped with it by rejecting kindness in all forms. She's now harsh and stern with everybody, and that's why people call her the Night Queen. Meanwhile, the country's facing a refugee crisis because there's been some fighting in the north. And Mina sees a woman begging outside the castle window with 2 children. And still claiming that she's not being kind, she gives the woman a job. So Carla says that she's all in on this book. She likes the writing. It's very well done. She's intrigued by Mina as a character. She's very curious to see if Ulrich will show back up as a love interest or if there's going to be somebody new. She doesn't quite see which fairy tale is being reimagined here, and she's looking forward to seeing how the plot will unfold. So, so let's move on to book number 2. The Fletcher Family Saga by J.T. Bishop, a box set of all 4 books in the paranormal thriller series Redline, the Fletcher Family Saga. The books are normally $5 to $6 each, but they're all unlimited. Not that it matters because it's a complete box set. There's also a related series, the Redline trilogy. I'm going to have a link to that in the description box below. So I'm the one who read this, and I do not like scary books. Real life is scary enough. I don't want to be scared, in my leisure reading. I want something a little bit more lighthearted, something actiony, but not too suspenseful and tense. And this book does has a little bit of suspense in it. Not that much. I had fun reading the first few chapters. So the story starts out with Grayson Steele. What a name, like straight out of a romance novel. So Grayson Steele wakes up on a couch with a hangover because someone's pounding on his door. And the guy comes in and starts cleaning up his place. He's been sent by his best friend, Cooper. Cooper and Grayson founded a hot tech company together a few years ago and became billionaires. But Cooper's been running it by himself because Grayson has suffered a traumatic event and is now basically drinking himself into oblivion in his beachside house. So what we find out later is that the traumatic event that's been happening is that every woman that Grayson cares about dies 3 days after they sleep together. And Grayson thinks that he is cursed. And there are creepy shadows kind of like skulking around. So maybe he's cursed by something supernatural. While the guy is cleaning up the house, Grayson steps outside to look at the ocean, and he sees police and ambulances further down the beach. There's a dead body. The dead body belongs to a woman Grayson slept with 3 days prior. He got drunk. He couldn't help himself. It's somebody who's an old childhood friend, and he's like devastated by this. So that's the setup of the book. His friend Cooper is telling him not to be ridiculous. There's no such thing as a curse. And if somebody's trying to do something to the women that he's with, they should just hire some bodyguards the next time to make sure that nothing happens. And he convinces Grayson to meet with a reporter who wants to do a story on him. And they're both attracted to each other. And these shadows show up, and they're following the reporter around. So it's a little creepy and suspenseful. So a little too creepy and suspenseful for me, but it's super readable. It's a lot of fun. The characters are engaging, and I like the book otherwise. So I recommend it if you like this kind of thing. So then we move on to the top book on our list today, Shadow Core by Justin Sloan. As of the time we wrote this article, this was the #1 best-selling book in the Amazon Sci-Fi and Fantasy free bookshelf. It's the first of 5 books in the Shadow Core military sci-fi series. The other books are $1 to $10 each, and all but the 10th book, all except the 5th book are in Kindle Unlimited. And this author has been on this list before. So this guy is a popular writer. NC Nabertovsky has reviewed it, and as he often does, he pays great attention to the grammar of the book, and he is not impressed. So he says that he is getting upset about the sentence structure of the author, and he's also noticed a typo in the first few pages. So he's not fond of that. He says just because the book has a decent concept, it's not going to be enough to get him to continue reading the book. But he says if you're looking for something that has lots of military flavor, if you're not too worried about accuracy, then this might be a good way to spend an afternoon. And the reason that Nick is concerned about accuracy is because he's an expert in military science. In fact, I think he teaches military science, and he's been in the military his whole life. So Nick is like is going to be like one of those hypercritical expert readers for this particular genre. I'm not, though. So this book sounds really interesting to me. So what's happening is that there's a space fantasy. There's a magical systems and spaceships and battles in this book. And it starts with a man who just lost his planet and the love of his life, and is the commander of a ship that he named after the love of his life. He's also getting visions of the future, and these visions give him an advantage in combat for obvious reasons. Meanwhile, Sam is our protagonist, and she's received some of the same alien powers that our commander has. And so she's been recruited into a military organization where she will help rid the galaxy of bad guys. So Nick says that this is an interesting idea, but he'd like to see it fleshed out a little bit more to be a full and complete story. So given the fact that it's a 5-book series, I think it might get fleshed out a little bit more as it goes along. Nick, be a little bit more flexible there. But I'm thinking of checking it out. So that was our list of top 10 books. If you want to grab any of these books, check out the description below. All the links are there. Grab them fast, because the books go in and out of the list very, very quickly. What happens is that authors and publishers make the books free as a promotion for their series, and the promotion only usually lasts for a few days. So this might be like your last day to get it. Who knows? Who knows when the promotion ends? If you don't want to miss any of these articles or the videos, subscribe to our channel or subscribe to our newsletter. Both of those links are going to be in the description box below as well. Okay, and about MetaStellar, we publish, in addition to book reviews, we publish original science fiction and fantasy short stories. So if you like to read stuff for free, we have hundreds of short stories on our site, and all the stories are always free to our readers, thanks to the kind support of our Patreon contributors. Thanks, guys. This month we're joined by Alex KOROLOV, and other new contributors are Avery Parks and Brad Center and Terrence Smith. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys make the site possible. Our next submission cycle opens in October. If you have a short story that you want to submit, and we pay for short stories. Yeah, so that's it for today. Come back next Friday for another free fiction roundup of the top books on Amazon. And AMIRA, thank you for joining me. And
My pleasure.
hopefully I'll see you next Friday.
I hope so. All right, cool.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.